As a business owner, you may have heard about trusts, trust agreements, but what are they and why do you need them? And more importantly, maybe when do you need them? Today, we're talking to Len Garza, the founder of Garza Law Firm, and he's focused on protecting the personal and business assets of business owners and other individuals and families. Len has been interviewed in numerous media outlets, including Forbes, Entrepreneur, Law Insider, CBS News, etc., and many more. He's been recognized by his attorney peers as a super lawyer and at the highest rating of the AV Preeminent, demonstrating outstanding lawyers who have attained a high degree of peer recognition and professional achievement. He's a frequently requested lecturer on a variety of topics, including family business, wealth planning, wealth preservation, asset protection of inheritance, and he enjoys educating the community and guiding business owners and their families on the path to building and protecting generational, I can say that well. Len, welcome today, and thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to us today. I think that this is a critical subject. You and I have had several conversations on that, and to point, I think we really need to get the business owner aware of some of the pitfalls and some of the benefits they can have by owning the business, and also how to protect that along the way, which is what I'm all about.
Absolutely, Diane. Always a pleasure to talk with you and have lively discussions about these things because it's complex. There's so much to know and it touches so many areas. So a lot of education is needed out there. And I love the work that you're doing, getting that out there, and happy to be here on the show with you.
Thank you. Thank you. So estate planning, interestingly enough, I addressed about 25 business and community leaders at a breakfast meeting this morning and told them one of the first things I look at for the business owner is their estate planning. And a couple of them jumped in and said, oh my gosh, this is so critical. And others kind of looked like the deer in the headlights. Okay.
Sure.
One even asked them to raise their hands if they had a properly and recently reviewed trust, and half the room maybe said yes. So
sure.
Tell us what's important to a business owner, why is estate planning even more critical for a business owner, and how that's going to affect their whole family and their livelihood down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, raising the hands in the room, the statistics are very interesting. And I'm sure, Diane, we see them all the time, but how many in your audience really know them? Well, it's estimated, this is just general population, including business owners, not business owners. I've seen numbers of anywhere on the low end from 50% to 70% of people who don't have a will. Now, what is a will versus estate plan? Are they one and the same things? Well, that's where it gets a little bit more complicated, and we go down the rabbit hole, because the general wisdom out there is everybody needs a will, everybody needs a will, everybody needs a will. And that is false. It's not completely false, but it's definitely not the whole story. If it's black or white, if it's binary, is it better to have a will versus not have a will? Well, yeah, it's better to have a will. You want that. You want to leave instructions to your loved ones, the courts, and everything after you pass on. But some people think, oh, I have a will, I'm good, I'm taken care of. And they don't realize that there are massive exposures, especially for business owners. This is especially for business owners, because as a business owner, you care about, obviously, not only your family. You have this is your legacy. There's this business that you've built, whether you're a solopreneur or whether you have a partner, a couple of partners. You have your business partners to watch out for. If you have a team, employees, vendors, clients, everything, there is this ecosystem that's depending on you and the business. And if all you have is a will, I've seen many situations where a will is completely deficient to the continuity of the business, and because a plan isn't set in place, that some of the things that we're going to talk about today, it means the end of the business, or the business goes way down in valuation just because a plan wasn't in place. It's a real shame.
Yeah, I actually have a story where there's a friend of mine who was a banker, very astute businesswoman, and a financial whiz. And at her memorial service, when she passed away, her daughter came up to me and said, I want to tell you that we put mom's estate into probate. And I'm like,
Yeah.
why? She had no trust, nothing set up.
Hmm. Right.
It broke my heart. And here the family's tied up, the resources are tied up, their hands are tied until they get through. It's expensive. I was shocked,
Right.
but
Right.
I'm sure you've seen those stories too.
Oh, many stories, but the thing is, so many people don't know that that's a possibility. They say, well, if I have a will, I don't have to go through probate, or that's not it. Not true. With a will and or no will, with or without a will, you have to go to probate. So I say a big thing that I like to talk with people about, Diane, is there's a lot of legal technical language out there, very easy to speak in jargon. I like to strip that out and talk to people in plain spoken, real talk, as you've heard, and say, this is what happens. And this can be a confronting question for anybody. What happens if you were to die right now? Snap of the fingers. And typically they say, oh, well, my business, this person, yeah, they're supposed to handle it. And maybe my spouse, or, oh, my kid knows what to do there. Okay, you have that plan of what you'd like to happen. Is that actually written down in legally enforceable legally enforceable agreement, not just a yellow legal pad or a napkin somewhere, a legally enforceable agreement, i.e., a will and preferably a trust, that if nobody that knows you is around, if that goes to court, the court's going to say, yes, this is exactly what happens. Or if it's not set up right, the court's going to pay it no mind at all and say, we have our own plan for you. In every state, it works this way. We have our own plan, and it's a plan you didn't write, you didn't prepare for. And that plan is called our state statutes, our state laws. And these plans were developed by congressmen and women in a legislature decades ago that have never met you, don't know your business, don't know your family, don't know the idiosyncrasies, don't know that wayward uncle or aunt who always pops their head up whenever money's involved and wants to make a claim on your assets, who you've excommunicated, years ago. They don't know any of that. They fit the square of your business into their round hole, and they jam it in there, and you're not going to like their plan, especially your business is not going to like their plan. But that's the plan you have if you don't have your own plan.
And that's one thing that I stress is you've got to get everything documented and make sure it's legally binding. And one of the biggest areas where I see this fall through is family run businesses, because they're family and they think, well, the adult child or whomever's supposed to take over or whatever isn't going to negate anything that they want to do. And I say, unless it's in writing and you've got it legal, there's always a risk. And that's one of the conversations I had with somebody this morning. It's just like, don't negate that, even if it's a family run business, and maybe more especially.
Oh, absolutely. Even maybe more so. I think that's a great point you make, Diane. And sometimes I run across this with family businesses, right? And, we have a daughter and a son and a younger son. And the son really thinks he's going to be the heir apparent to the business. I don't really have the heart to tell him, but I just don't, his temperament, I don't think he's made out for it. Meanwhile, the daughter is an ace. I would love for her to take it. She wants nothing to do with it. She wants to forge her own path and wants to go do something else with her life. How can I bring her back to the table? I'd love for it to be her. And so without having these conversations, which are difficult conversations, no doubt, but the ostrich in the sand strategy is no strategy, right? And I find so many people, business owners included, have this feeling with this of, oh, well, when we get there, it'll take care of itself. It'll take care of itself.
Don't assume anything.
Don't assume anything. And the way it takes care of itself, I've seen, if there's no plan, is the family ends up in court, probate court, and conflict because What did mom want? What did dad want? Well, they're not here to tell us anymore. So we don't have it written in a legally enforceable document as to what they want. So the son says, oh, we always know it's me. The daughter may say, well, wait. Now I actually do want a piece. Things changed when mom or dad died, and I want to be part of the legacy. What do you do then? And what do you do with the current non-family employees, maybe some of them senior employees there, saying, well, who says it should be in the family anyway? We're the ones who have worked in the business and we actually know the business. If these things aren't laid out, they lead. Who wants to have a fight between your business and family members who are involved in the business or are not? Talk about worst nightmare type stuff. That is what you're key is inadvertently setting up to happen if you don't lay out a plan.
Agreed.
Right. And it's a shame when I see it happen and the plan isn't laid out. Now, it can be uncomfortable to get to that plan.
Yeah.
They take uncomfortable conversations, but you got to be proactive about it and head it off.
Absolutely. Like I said, the ostrich with the head in the sand does not work. That is not a plan.
Right.
So,
oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So talking about trusts, because I know there's a lot of confusion about a trust. You said not everybody needs one, but talk to us a little bit about the most common one, of course, being the AB trust, the family trust.
Right.
Who needs one? When should they start considering doing that? What's the line in the sand there where they should start thinking about having a trust?
Sure. So I want to start off with talking about trust. There's a lot of information out there and a lot of misinformation out there. And there is a lot of very technical, jargony information out there. So it's very important whenever you're thinking about trust to make sure you're thinking about it in the right way. It's what I tell people often is look at trust like think of trust when we're talking about trust like a vehicle. They're all different types of vehicles. Right? Are we talking about a car? Are we talking about an SUV? There are different characteristics as to all those. That's what a trust is, right? Like, so you just mentioned, Diane, there's an AB trust. There's, kind of these kind of technical names. There's revocable trust. There's irrevocable. There's, SLAT. There's all kinds of technical alphabet soups, right? If I start going in technical, I don't think that's going to help anybody. So let me just strip that out. Let's talk about one very specific type of trust I'd like everybody to think about, all business owners to think about. And it's going back to the probate process. The probate is a court process. Now, all of this is very state specific. So I'm talking very generally, right? But generally, if you don't have a will, or if you have a will and you have a business, you're looking, very generally speaking, at a probate process that when you die, when you pass away, by law, all of your assets freeze. Many people don't know this. They automatically freeze. Assets, everything from your bank account, that's only in your name, right? Not jointly owned, but only in your name. From your retirement accounts to vehicles, your house, and everything gets lumped in as your assets, your business assets too, your ownership in your business. Many business owners, you think your business is a separate type of thing from all other assets. In many ways, that's absolutely true. But according to the law, in this way, it's not. They all get thrown together. They all get frozen. How do you get them unfrozen? Or how does the successor, your family or whatever, get them unfrozen? By law, you have to get the court's blessing. You got to go to court. That's the probate process.
That takes time.
Well,
yeah.
And I asked somebody earlier this week, how long do you think that unfreezing, that process takes? Oh, a few weeks? No. Try minimum 9 months and more often 12 to 18 months. Now, the reasons for that are different in each state. So definitely check with your own state. But why is that? Well, it's because it is a court process. And think of, I don't want to bag on government or government entities here, but think of going to your local motor vehicle agency or a driver motor vehicle for anybody who's never been through the court process. How is that process? You're looking at long,
right? You're just,
You're looking at long lines,
yeah.
right? Hurry up and wait, long lines, employees there. That some of them, not all of them, but many of them have a certain mentality of just, yeah, I'll get to you when I get to you. And effectively, you are just a number. So it's this huge bottleneck, and you're waiting for to move through this process so the court can say, okay, we're finally up to you after our stack of other people that we went through, and we've got another stack after you. These are your documents. This is who is involved. Now we grant you approval to actually pass out the assets and to retitle them from the deceased person, you, the business owner, to your family. And that process is very frustrating, time consuming, public, and expensive. Right. So how expensive, we're talking public. People don't know that all it takes many times is somebody calling the county after you die to find out everything that's in your will and all the assets that you own. Oh, Len, I didn't know about it. Why is that? Because that's the law. Wills are public record once they get submitted. For some people, that's a very serious deal for privacy. They don't want that happening. It's frustrating, like we talked about. You're putting somebody, sometimes a spouse, or sometimes a child or an adult child, or a relative, to go through this process as executor or trustee. That's very unfamiliar, and they are at the whim of the court for, oh, we're going to have an appointment, we're going to have a meeting, never mind, we're going to reschedule it for 2 more months. Why did they reschedule it? I really need this. I really need title to the house so we can sell it. All of these things, very frustrating. And it's also,
The
yeah,
assets, loss of control of anything.
loss of control, very expensive. How expensive is the probate process? If you Google online, it's roughly 2 to 7% of all your assets. So for ease, let's say everything you own, your business, house, any properties, bank accounts, everything, let's just say for ease of reference, it's $1 million, flat $1 million, all the worth of that. What's 2 to 7% of that? I mean, that's many thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. It's not technically a tax, but it might as well be, because that gets taken off all for going through probate. And can anybody's business be hung up and in limbo for months on end while the court gets around and says, oh, yes, you have the right to run the business and take over the business, make sure employees get paid, make sure vendors get paid, make sure clients get invoiced. The company is without a rudder and without a captain for those months.
And you can't run a business like that, and you're not going to run a business. So essentially, it's also the death of the business. And to your other point, you're jeopardizing your family, you're jeopardizing your employees, if you care anything about them, their families, and a lot of times the community at large, because that leaves a hole.
Very stressful process during that time, during that waiting period. There was a business owner, like you said, who he was a local steel manufacturer. He was the main breadwinner and owner. He was like a local celebrity. Had a heart attack. It was like a black swan event, a heart attack. Nobody saw it coming. He did not have a succession plan. I mean, he had a will, but it was very basic, very skeleton form drafted. He did not have a trust that would circumvent this whole process and save the business, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a little bit. But he was like a local celebrity, and this was the business hung on for a few months, but it was out there without their captain. Morale plummeted. The employees left. They didn't know what was going to happen. Customers started seeing the drop in service. They bolted for competitors, and it just became a vicious circle. More customers are leaving, so more employees are saying, well, why should I stick around? This is sinking ship, and it just accelerates. Very sad thing. And by the way, the spouse is left behind saying, now I'm trying to sell the business, but the business is dying on the vine these past few months, and I basically get nothing, pennies on the dollar.
Asset sale.
Very sad situation.
Yeah,
yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Boy, oh boy, that is a sad story. So,
Yeah.
what can the business owner do, and what does the trust do? And I know you said that there's multiple kinds of trust, but what's the first step of protecting that business asset and your personal
Right.
assets as well?
Right. So we're talking about, this is really a foundation for business owners, and it's a living trust. So it's a very specific type of trust, and it's a trust that you, the business owner, while you're alive, you still own, right? You transfer your assets into the trust, but you still have full control of the assets, meaning your business to run it. And it's very important because with this specific type of trust, you still have that control. Other types of trusts, you lose that control. Now, there's reasons, a trade-off that you get for those types of trusts by losing the control. You get certain tax benefits, certain asset protection if you're worried about lawsuits from creditors or potential divorce or things like that. There are all types of host of reasons for having all those other trusts. But I think the important thing for your audience to realize, Diane, right now is that there are different types of trusts, and to know when you're talking about setting up a trust to compare apples to apples and make sure the trust that you're comparing, that it actually accomplishes what you're looking to accomplish. So for what we're talking about, avoiding the untimely death situation, death or incapacity, and making sure that of the continuity of the business, this living trust would circumvent probate, the court, the probate process. So rather than having to get the approval of the court, by law, if this trust is set up properly, and I say if, beware of going online or social media or anybody saying, oh, we can set this up or what have you. How much would you pay for a trust that doesn't work? Right.
Right.
And
You don't know it doesn't work until it doesn't work.
the trouble is you don't know it doesn't work until it doesn't work and it's way too late, right? So would you trust yourself to a non-attorney, or doing it yourself, or going to one of these online companies? You're taking a risk, realizing, I understand that they're less expensive, they're cheaper, but realizing that you're taking a massive risk. How do you know that it works, and that it'll say that it works the way it says it will? So a properly structured and drafted trust will protect your business and other assets. So instead of being at your death, instead of being hung up in the court probate process for many months, paying tens of thousands of dollars for that process, and potential fight between your business and family, and the publicity of it, you can avoid all of that. It's private. You don't have to go through court. You avoid the court processes and the frustrations of going through court, and you can do it in the comfort of your friendly attorney. I only say that, half in tongue in cheek, but if your friendly estate attorney's office, right? And so you don't have to get the court's blessing involved. For example, you go into the attorney's office, the attorney will watch and see how all the assets are to be passed out based on what you want, including your business. And all of that will be outlined and carried out in a matter of days, if not weeks, possibly days. And that enables, more importantly than anything, yeah, it's good for bank accounts. Yeah, it's good for property transfers, all your personal assets, critical for your business. It
So
allows continuity of the
there are
business.
certain kinds of businesses that you can have in the trust, and certain kinds of businesses that you can't have legally. So
Mhm.
what are the ones that you can, and if you can't because they're taxed a different way, what are the provisions that you can do to protect yourself in those instances?
Right. So this is where it gets
Muddy?
very devils in the details, but I can give you a broad overview of some of what you're talking about, Diane. So as business owners, there are what we call S corporations, and this is where the details really get involved. because an corporation is a tax election. It's not actually a type of legal entity, and this is where it's going to get confusing. So, for example, you can have a corporation that's a C corporation under the IRS code. I promise I'm trying not to be so wonky here, and I'm not going to go too much into the language, but you have a C corporation that you can make an S corporation. But if you're an LLC, you can also be an LLC that is taxed as an S corporation.
Right.
These are important distinctions because I have some people say, oh, I'm an S corporation. I'm an S corporation. I was like, okay, I need more information. Are you an LLC that's taxed as an S corporation, or are you a C corporation that's taxed as a S corporation? Because there are differences in how those are treated, definitely for legal purposes and who you can have as shareholders and what you can put into certain types of trusts. So with that S corporation election, the company gets certain types of tax benefits that you have while you have that S election. The trouble with the S election tends to be you can lose the S election by your company not being run or not being in alignment with the tax code in subchapter S. And the way you can blow that S election can be very easy and very inadvertent if you don't have the right advice on what things you can and can't do. One of the things that can easily blow the S election is to put it in the wrong type of trust. And what is the wrong type of trust? This is where it gets very intricate, but one of the ways is that you put it into a trust where the beneficiaries, the people who could take over under that trust, aren't permitted people to own or be an owner of the company under the S corporation status. So these can be very inadvertent things where the current business owners, as it is now, you satisfy the IRS, the tax to be in the S election. But if your advisor, or God forbid, you try to do this without a lawyer who knows to do this in this area, you try to have your business interests go to a trust. And how that trust is written, it doesn't have the right terms and language to comply with the S election language. You can blow the S election, and all of a sudden, whoever takes over that company has a massive tax bill to pay. And do they have money to pay that tax bill? It's a massive liquidity problem and potentially something that could sink the company, depending on the value of the business. That is one instance. That's one sub-branch of the question that you've asked, Diane, right? So that's one. And so another one, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but you have professionals, right? CPAs, lawyers, doctors, where you have to be licensed to own the business. A non-licensed person cannot own the business.
Well, even in my situation with an insurance agency, you have to.
Right, exactly. So this involves an overlap of and knowledge. You got to be able to spot the issues. The attorney's got to be able to spot the issues and say, we can't just put this in any old will or any old trust. We have to be mindful of these other things because, yes, while we may have the intent of putting your business in here to avoid probate, does this also trigger some other negative things that we need to be mindful of and say, well, you need a different type of trust with different characteristics for us to hop through all of these hoops. Wow. Becomes a very specialized area where, again, you don't want to just go to Main Street Lawyer USA, whose primary area is divorce and car accidents. And, oh, by the way, we also happen to do wills.
A real estate attorney, he can do the trust.
Right.
Too. It's like,
right. And so being an educated consumer of these advisors and knowing what you're getting into. I talked to a potential client earlier this year where she had issues where there was a very large judgment in the millions that had already been issued against one of her family members that was supposed to be protected by the trust. And she said, Len, is there any way that we can transfer all of our assets away to a trust to protect us from this judgment? To which I said, yes, there is, but you could be put in jail for that. And I could too, for arranging that, because that's in violation of these federal laws. You know, how do you know about these traps for the unwary, the dangers? You know, you go to the wrong attorney who says, sure, I'll go ahead and try this. I'm good at learning. Let me place it. Let's put it in this trust.
Yeah.
Problem solved. And you and that attorney have unknowingly committed federal criminal law, and you are looking at massive penalties, having everything you looked at accomplishing unwound, because the feds unwind all of that stuff. You're not fooling anybody.
Right.
And on top of that, you're looking at criminal penalties and potentially time away, as well as your advisor. You know, these areas, I want to say I don't mean to scare you, but maybe I do mean to scare you, because these are the things where you learn to watch out.
Yeah.
Watch out where you get to go. Critical to get the right advice. Critical to get the right advice.
We're all about triggering the mindset for the business owner to bring just to front to mind where this may be something on the back burner or something that they thought about but haven't taken care of, and really give them the incentive to sit down with a qualified advisor, somebody who specializes in that area, who can have this conversation with them, really dig in and find out what the issues are, so that the proper tools and the proper estate planning are set up, and they can rest easily and know that their assets and their families and everything else is protected. So how often do they need to have this reviewed? Let's say you set up a great trust for somebody, and you know, they're going along happily, and you know, 15 years down the road, they haven't had it reviewed.
Right. Yeah, I think that's another important thing to surface and to realize as a business owner. This is not a set it and forget it type of thing, right? This is a living, breathing plan. Just like, is your life going to stay static as it is right now? Life and your business going to stay static from now until the day you die? Well, of course not. It's not. How is it going to change? Some ways you may know how it's going to change. Oh, Len, in the future, we definitely want to grow. Maybe we lease right now. We eventually want to move into this building, may buy the building, may want to buy a competitor, what have you. Some of those things you can predict. Other things you have no way to know. Oh, my business partner, Len, all of a sudden they want to leave the business. We had to buy out the business. Or, oh, we're going to add on another partner. The list is endless.
Yeah.
Things can change.
Yeah.
But as things change, your plan should make sure your plan is up to date.
Yeah.
Does your plan need to be updated with all these changes? Maybe not. Maybe there's some minor tweaks, or you can add a simple amendment, or maybe there are contingencies. Like in our plans, I know we build language in there for certain contingencies. So if certain specified things happen, they don't immediately trigger needing an update. There's some wiggle room in there. However, if certain other things that may be more major, like adding a new partner, or like, merger of the company, or what have you, or adding a new business line, or new company as a subsidiary, things like that. Depending on what's in those documents, you want to make sure that this expanded scope of your business and your life, that the scope of the documents covers this expanded scope of your business. So it's largely an it depends answer, but you should look at this. I generally say for people, hey, have it looked at roughly every 3 years.
Yeah,
if nothing major's happened. Can you go to 5 years? Potentially. It's not great. It's kind of like changing the oil in your car, right? It's like you can push it a little bit longer. However, if something major happens, or for your business, reach out to your attorney and say, hey, is this something I need to watch out for? An attorney that works with you for life on this, like we do with people, and it's not just a transaction, one time get your trust done, but it's a relationship for your life and the life of your business. That should be no problem. They should, know your business and be able to tell you, yeah, this is what we we need to watch out for. Or, oh, your agreement, your partnership agreement or buy-sell agreement here, it's now out of sync with your trust. And this is another thing we haven't talked about.
Yeah.
Make sure different documents are in sync and they don't have conflicting language amongst each other, because that can lead to a fight as well.
Yeah, one thing I find a lot is the one and done. Okay, we had our
Right.
trust done 20 years ago, or we had it done when we lived in a different state, and
Right.
different states have different laws and may need to, like we would say, do an amendment, something like that. So that's one of the triggers I find a lot of times with the business owners, especially, that they've just gotten so busy they haven't even thought about reviewing anything. So really important.
Right.
Keep it forward.
And to that point, Diane, I think it's so easy to get into the paralysis of analysis. It gets overwhelming. It's hard sometimes to get through all we have in one day and get to thinking to later on in the week and obligations of the next month, next quarter, next year, what we want to do in our business. And I get that, but I think the important thing is not let perfect be the enemy of good. If you have nothing in place, or if you only have a will right now, get something in place, right? Something's in place, and then you can always go back with the plan that you develop. If it's this certain type of trust, you can always go back and change it later. Businesses change, life changes. Oh, Len, we need to change things. I got divorced, or Len, I got remarried. Len, we had another kid. Len, I've had a falling out with this family member, that, or this business partner left, or all of that stuff is going to happen. At least you have something to go from, and you're not starting off at ground zero. So
totally agree. Totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being on here today. We don't want to belabor this too much because we're going to really scare them then, but I think we've given them enough information to maybe make them take some steps to look at what they currently have. And if they don't have anything, certainly to sit down with a qualified advisor to get that taken care of. And I'm Diane Kelly with Fresh View Business Solutions. I'm a certified exit planner. That's why I'm so passionate about making sure business owners have everything lined up, because I see what happens when they don't. And Len's touched on a couple stories here, as have I. So if you're a business owner and you've got some questions, I'll have Len's information here. You're welcome to contact him. And I'm certainly here to help you with any other questions. And we really appreciate you sharing this information. We feel it's really important to get it out to the business owners. So if you're involved in any groups or anything else that involves business owners, and you want to share that with them, we would really appreciate that. So thank you today for joining us. Len, thank you again for your time. And we really appreciate having you here. And maybe we'll jump back in at another time and go a little bit deeper and get into the buy-sells and partnership agreements and some of the other things, because that's also one of the what we call 5 Ds that can sink your business, is disagreements, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I've seen that
Absolutely.
happen too.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Diane. Much appreciated. And thanks for having me.
Thank you.